Hello, my name is ShaneidaMonique and welcome. If you're new here, I do videos geared towards helping you navigate through life and relationships. And today's video is on gaslighting. Now, my take on gaslighting is going to be probably different from other videos that you have watched because like everything, I want it to be relatable. I want to give you examples on how gaslighting and these other manipulative tactics affect you every day. All right, so first, let's start off by the definition of gaslighting. So basically, what gaslighting is, it's a tactic used mostly by narcissistic people, and it is the same as the terminology of crazy making, whereas the person that's gaslighting, let's say this is a narcissistic person who's gaslighting their potential victim, they have it in their mind that they're trying to establish a false reality. All right. Now, sometimes these terms, I think that they're a little sometimes difficult to understand, and sometimes they're not really that much relatable, especially when it just comes to like everyday people and just regular life. But let me tell you something. Everybody has been gaslit, lighted, whatever you want to call it, at some point in time in their life. 100%. If you're watching this video, you know you've already been gaslit. Not necessarily with this video, but you've been gaslit or somebody has gaslighted you in your past. And one thing that I have noticed is that it necessarily doesn't stop. And it's not something that is just exclusive to narcissistic people. All right. You can be just a toxic person and end up, gaslighting people and not even be aware of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break down the terms when it comes to gaslighting. I'm going to give you some very real examples. All right. Then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you some information on how to counteract this manipulative technique so that you can end up doing what? Living your best life, because that's what we want all the time, all day. All right. All right. So first thing is when it comes to gaslighting, most likely, if you've ever been gaslit before, it probably happened to you as a child. All right. Now, the term gaslighting actually comes from a movie, like this old school movie. I think it's called Gaslit. You can Google it. If I find it, I'll leave it in the description box below. But it's an old movie about like this dude who was trying to make his wife seem like she was crazy and losing her mind. So like he would do underhanded things like, turn the lights on and off, like, say that she was making things up and whatever. But the best movie that I would say that kind of relates to gaslighting and is kind of entertaining, The Invisible Man with the chick from The Handmaid's Tale. And I feel like that movie is a good example of, being gaslit. All right, but let me give you an example of how a child will be gaslit. Now, this is very, very like innocent when you're young, right? So my grandma used to gaslight me all the time when I was younger. And one thing that she would do is I would tell her that like one of my cousins did something bad or somebody did something bad, and she would say, no, they didn't. No, that didn't happen. I'd be like, this person, he cursed and he pushed me against the wall and he told me not to tell. He was going to punch me in my face, and I would run and go tell my grandmother. I'd be like, that's what he did. And she would say, no, absolutely. He didn't do that. And she would go to my male cousin and be like, did you do that? No, there's no way that you did that. There's no way, right? That is being gaslit. Like that is the easiest definition of being gaslit, is the fact that I am telling an adult or telling a person that this in fact happened to me, and the other person saying, no, it can't be true. You didn't know. You're making it all up, right? So that's very innocent and very, it's not that toxic, not that kind of harmful. Right now, gaslighting becomes harmful. Let's say if I'm a child and I go to tell a very real thing that happened, and let's say the adult is saying, no way, that didn't happen, that you're making it up. Like that becomes a very, very big problem. Okay, and this actually shows up in your adult life, whereas, you know, growing up, you think to yourself like, okay, this is some people are just not going to believe me when I tell them certain things. Some people are just not going to validate my feelings, and actually that is just toxic altogether, because each one of us, we have our own feelings that are very real and needs to be validated, and we learn this from a very young age. So most likely, if a person is trying to gaslight you, it's 100% a technique that they were taught, especially from being a young adult, a young child, and probably being gaslit by another adult. And now, as you grow up and you become adults, you tend to take on that toxic trait and the toxicity that you learned as a child and apply that to your adult life. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, the technique or the manipulation tactic of gaslighting someone is very real. You can gaslight someone one-on-one. You can do it in a group setting. You know, and this is known in like politicians and like corporate areas to, like, you know, use gaslighting as, like, you know, a technique to get things done. All right. But okay, so moving on. When it comes to you being gaslit, I feel like another toxic area that this has a major role in is in your dating life. All right, so when it comes to gaslighting in relationships, right, I also want you to keep in mind that not every tactic and manipulation tactic is done by a narcissistic person. So just because a person is gaslighting you, or they or gaslighting other people, whatever, doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist. These are just techniques that we are very familiar with when it comes to dealing with narcissistic personalities. But regular toxic individuals use gaslighting as much as they use the freaking coffee maker in the morning. Okay? All right, so when it comes to being gaslit in a dating setting, right? One example that I'm gonna give you is if you're a woman, right, and you meet this guy and everything is going smoothly, right? Everything is going great, and you notice that as time goes on, he starts to make little comments about you. He starts to make little comments either with men. It's usually very easy for them to hone in on like a woman's weight or some type of physical appearance. So in that case, usually what he'll do is he'll start to say little comments like, "Oh, I think you're putting on weight," or I think you should take it easy a little bit with how much you've been eating," or, you know, like, or he'll like grab your stomach area and squish it a little bit. Now, this does not mean that it's toxic, or that his intentions is for it to be toxic. It turns toxic and it turns into gaslighting when he got roles too. It turns into gaslighting when he eating crazy and he the one putting on weight, but he wants you to think that you're the one looking like trash. Okay. Also, it leads into gaslighting when you notice that after your interactions or after your conversations, you don't feel good about yourself. Like, you don't feel like as confident. You don't feel as outgoing. You start to really question yourself and really question if in fact you are putting on weight. If in fact you you know, you should slow down. All right. Now, when it comes to gaslighting a person, this can be done in any area. It's usually done in a setting where the person knows what to hit home with you. So if they know that you're sensitive about, let's say, your acne scars, then they will make comments in regards to your acne scars. And then when you bring it up to them and says, "Oh, well, you told me that my acne looked like this and it was ugly and you know, whatever," they'll respond by saying, "No, I didn't," which is like just a bold-faced lie, right? Or they'll say, "I was just joking. I was just joking." Because usually when it comes to a person that's gaslighting you, they tend to like to deflect. They tend to like to not necessarily deal with the problem at hand, but to deflect and say, "Okay, no, I was just kidding. You're being too sensitive." Now, if you legit have an issue with somebody and you bring it to their attention and their reaction is, "You're being too sensitive," that should be a red flag for you to really start paying attention to how this person is moving, how this person is interacting with you. Okay. For me, I'm going to give you an example of, you know, one of my past relationships that I was in. And when when I was like dating this person and dealing with them or whatever, like I noticed that they would make little comments here and there about my personality, or, you know, or make little jabs here and there. And so at first, you know, I would say, hey, like, relax there, sir. Okay. But then I noticed too that it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like a joke. The person was saying, oh, I was just kidding, I was just joking, but it didn't feel like a joke. It didn't settle with my spirit, right? Especially I want to say that red flag or key is to pay attention to your gut. If something hits your gut, if somebody says a comment to you, or you're in a situation and you like, and your gut, your stomach is telling you like, this ain't right. Listen to your gut. It ain't right. It's not right. Okay, so like things like that would kind of happen, and then I would start to turn on my analytical mind and start to pay attention to what this person was actually saying to me, what this person was doing, how they were moving, right? And you know, and then like that, when you actually start to step back from a situation and then analyze the movement, you will uncover that the pattern is toxic. The pattern is gaslighting. You're essentially gaslighting me for whatever reason. Maybe you want, you know, maybe you want to bring my self-esteem from up here to down here so that I'm more relatable to you. I'm not really sure. You know, you never really know what the premise is for a person to be toxic or manipulative, what they're going through or whatever the case is. But you know, it's up to us to recognize the patterns and then decide from there if we're going to continue to talk to this person, or if we're going to cut the relationship off. I would say that if you notice any toxic patterns when it comes to dealing with a person, to cut the relationship off, to cut the ties. Now, again, that's way easier said than done. And I understand that because sometimes we build trauma bonds with people. We have relationships with people that are just unescapable, like parents or siblings, other relatives, co-workers, people that are, it's difficult to create distance. It's difficult to escape the relationship. So in that sense, what I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you a couple of tools right now to help you when it comes to how to counteract if in fact you're being gaslit by someone in your life. All right, so number one is going to be, you have to become emotionally detached from the person, right? Now, when you're emotionally detached from the person, it's basically you're keeping your ears to yourself. Nothing that they say, nothing that they do can cause a reaction from you. You are completely emotionally detached. Now, emotionally detached, this might be a little difficult in the beginning because you not only have to detach from the good parts, but you also have to detach mostly from the bad parts, right? So if you're used to getting compliments from this person and the compliments turn into criticism and all this other stuff, you have to emotionally detach to the point where their criticism or their compliments really has no effect on you emotionally. You take it and you say, okay, cool, and move on. Completely be emotionally detached from this person if you cannot avoid them. All right. Also, when they try to gaslight you and they try to, make up lies, make up stories, don't react to it. They're trying to create a false reality with you, but you stay in the reality. You stay knowing that you know what you said, you know what you did, and don't give them the time of day to even pull the BS story on you or to even put it in your lap. Okay, just ignore them. Just stay neutral. Sometimes you just have to look at them when they're spilling their BS stories and they're talking their lies and other things and making up stories about you. Sometimes you just gotta sit there and be like, oh, okay, is that what I said? Is that what I did? Oh, okay, cool. Anybody getting donuts? All right, so my number two suggestion is going to be, make sure that you stay defiant in your interactions with them, especially when they start to gaslight you. Now, staying defiant basically means that when they tell you that that you said something that you did not say, when they tell you that you did something that you did not do, you're going to state very firmly, no, that's not what happened. I didn't say it. I didn't do that. And you're going to leave it just like that. Now, sometimes you have to be careful because sometimes especially if this is like a narcissistic person, they will use that defiant to push even further. They will use that defiant to cause friction and go back and forth. Okay, but what you want to do is you just want to stay defiant and say, no, listen, I know what I said and I know what I did, and that's not it. Moving on. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your stories. I'm not interested in listening to you spill, you know, a whole bunch of lies. You know, and sometimes I would say an example of this would be like, if you're dating a person and let's say the person did something to you, but you want to bring it up to their attention. So you have a sit down and you say, listen, you know, I feel like this is going on. I feel like I have a problem with this. And then all of a sudden that person says to you, oh, well, you know what? Well, I have a problem with you. This is what I thought about you. This is how I felt when you said this to me. At that point in time, you want to stay defiant. Listen, that's not what we're talking about right here. I told you that I didn't like it that you did this, and that. Okay? That's what we're talking about. Well, I didn't like it that you did da. Okay. Again, I did not like when you did dot, and da. So that's what we're discussing, right? So you kind of have to stay defiant in that moment, right? But I'm going to also give you another tip right here, because what's essentially going to happen is when you're dealing with a person that enjoys gaslighting, when you're dealing with like a narcissistic person, someone like that, there is no winning an argument, especially if they're trying to gaslight you. There is no winning when it comes to you being logical and laying out the facts and just telling them, hey, listen, this is how I feel. This is what was done. Like, don't expect them at any point in time to say, you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm so sorry that I made you feel that way. That's never going to happen, ever. Like, so even getting into a verbal argument with them or some type of match is pointless, because they can go on and on and on and on and on. And it's one of those things where like, you're arguing with a person that has no problem with lying. They have no problem with exaggerating. They have no problem with just spilling out anything and everything in order to win the fight. So in that area, I'm going to say, like, when it comes to being gaslit and everything, like, just try to avoid the argument as much as possible. If need be, state the fact, state the fact that you didn't appreciate, you know, that and that and that and this and that, whatever the case is. But also keep in the back of your mind that this is an argument that can go on and on and on forever. All right. And do you want to be arguing with the person for the rest of your life? No, absolutely not. All right. So, and then tip number 3 that I'm going to give you for if a person is trying to gaslight you. Now, it's not going to be the best tip. Okay. But, you know, I'm going to give you the realness. If you want to go toe to toe with this person, I'm going to give you the realness on how to do it. All right. It's a little bit toxic. And I don't really subscribe to toxic too much, but you notice that a person is trying to gaslight you. You've tried to establish your boundaries. You tried to talk. They don't want to do it, whatever. Start gaslighting them. Start gaslighting them back and leave it alone. Okay, that's another technique. When you're with a narcissistic person, you start mirroring their narcissism and, you know, you just gaslight them right back. They're not going to like it. And then on top of that, if you want to make it fun, just start pulling craziness out of the air. Look, the moment that they say something that you know that is totally absurd, you say something even more absurd. Like, remember that time you picked up the garbage truck and you smashed it on my house and broke my whole roof? And they're like, what? Like, exactly. It makes no sense. It's something that we're like, if you can't escape it, then you could just laugh about it. But again, you have to be very careful when dealing with toxic people, and you have to be very careful when dealing with narcissistic people, because when it comes to these like toxic traits, they're learned. And a lot of times people learn them as children and, you know, and just know how to operate them as adults. And when you get involved with too many narcissistic people, you take on those narcissistic traits. You take on those bad manipulation tactics, and you use them against other people. Even though you might not be a narcissistic person, you might not, you know, actually have the disorder, but you do enjoy the toxic traits of it. And that's a problem, especially when you start dealing with healthy people and you want a healthy relationship. That's going to hinder you. So you have to be very, very careful in the fact of, If you're dealing with narcissistic people, do not really take on their traits. Do not go dipping your toe in the toxic pool because there's doodle in there. Okay? There's doodle and there's pee in that pool. You don't want to be swimming in that. Okay? Because you're going to get out the pool. You're going to be reeking for your healthy relationship that's going to happen for you in the future. You don't want to do that. All right. So I would say that if you're involved with any type of toxic person, although it might be fun, you know, you want to do like Carisha, and you want to be with Diddy. Diddy is toxic, okay, but she want her real bad. You got to be careful. You have to be careful because you will end up taking on that person's toxic traits and toxicity and then applying that to your future relationships when you actually want to have healthy relationships. Okay, again, I hope that this was helpful. If you've experienced gaslighting for yourself, leave me a comment. Let me hear your story. All right, also too, if you have not subscribed to my channel, I'm going to need you to subscribe to my channel. All right, go check out my other videos. All right, I'm sure there's going to be a video that you enjoy. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this one if you're still watching, and I will chat with you soon. Thank you. Bye.